Close your eyes softly. Take a gentle breath. Let your mind pause for a moment. Observe the movement within. Notice the thoughts, the endless streams of conversation playing over and over. Notice the predictions, calculations, the questions that have no answers yet. Overthinking is quiet, but it carries weight. It smiles at the world while inside your mind races. It keeps you awake at night, restless, exhausted. It prepares endlessly, anticipating every future so you feel protected. And yet, strangely, it feels responsible. Like if you analyze one more detail, plan one more step, consider one more angle, you will finally feel secure. But what if that sense of safety never comes? What if the fatigue you feel is not from circumstances, but from carrying burdens you were never meant to carry alone? There is a weight that belongs to effort, and there is a weight that belongs to Allah. When the two are mixed, suffocation follows. Tonight, I invite you to consider this question deeply. What would happen if you stopped attempting to control everything? What would shift if you sincerely did your part and then truly left the rest to Allah? Not as a phrase you casually say, not as words for others to see, but as a truth you feel deep in your heart. Because everything transforms when the heart aligns. Everything shifts when overthinking gives way to trust. When something unexpected occurs, what is the first reaction of your heart? When bad news arrives, when messages seem cold, when plans collapse, when uncertainty fills the room, what stirs inside first? For many, it is not calm. It is a tightening, a rapid surge of thoughts, a compulsion to fix things immediately. We reach for our phones, we search for answers, we map out every possibility. We imagine worst case scenarios before reality even shows itself. Almost unconsciously, we begin to shoulder it alone. Most panic first and pray later. Analysis precedes surrender. We exhaust ourselves before seeking divine support. But what if the order were reversed? What if before fear multiplies and overthinking takes root, we paused even for 5 seconds and whispered simply, Ya Allah, not perfectly, not with rehearsed words, but with honesty. Ya Allah, guide me, protect me. I cannot carry this alone. The subtle shift awakens something powerful. Who you turn to first reveals what you trust. Panic first, and the heart relies on itself. Turn first to Allah, and the heart returns to its anchor. Dua is not a last resort. It is the first refuge. The more you train your heart to run to Allah before fear, the smaller the space for overthinking. The problem may remain, the uncertainty may persist, but your heart becomes steadier because you are no longer standing alone in the storm. Repeatedly, this shift, turning to reliance rather than reaction, changes how you navigate life. Overthinking feels like control, which is why letting go is so difficult. It masquerades as responsibility, intelligence, preparation. If I just think more, I can finally feel calm. If I anticipate every scenario, nothing will surprise me. Calling, but reflect, has overthinking ever truly brought certainty? Has replaying past conversations altered what was already said? Has imagining 10 possible futures prevented what was destined? Overthinking moves the mind but rarely soothes the heart, yet we cling to it because it creates the illusion of authority. If I think enough, I am in charge. If I prepare enough, I am safe. But the unseen is never ours to hold. Tomorrow does not wait for your calculations. There is a distinction between planning and obsession. Planning is measured, calm, and finite. Overthinking has no boundary. It loops endlessly, consuming energy and creating more uncertainty. Slowly, you may come to believe that every outcome rests on your shoulders. Your success, relationships, safety, future. And that belief is heavy because somewhere deep down, you know your limitations. You know you cannot foresee everything, control everything, or guarantee everything. Yet instead of accepting this truth, you push harder, tighten your grip, overanalyze. The more you clutch, the more fatigued you become. Overthinking is rarely strength. Often, it is fear masquerading as responsibility. It is the heart attempting to manufacture security through control. True safety, however, is not about knowing all outcomes. It is about knowing who holds all outcomes. Until that recognition arises, the mind races, trying to carry what was never intended to be carried. There is a quiet truth we often deny. Humans are not built to carry everything alone. We reach limits, feel overwhelmed, and yet we are ashamed of it. Somewhere along the way, we learned that independence equals strength and neediness equals weakness. Asking for help, even from Allah, can feel like inadequacy. So we push ourselves, striving to be invincible, suppressing emotion, seeking validation internally. But being human is to be limited. You were never designed to know everything, control everything, or withstand endless pressure unaided. This is not flaw, it is divine. It's design. Acknowledging your limits softens something inside. It releases tension, allows dependence without shrinking you. Dependence on the Allah steadies the heart because your foundation shifts from fragile human effort to unshakable divine support. Overthinking thrives when you believe everything depends on you. Once you remember that ultimate control is not yours, shoulders relax, breath deepens, and inner tension eases. You were never meant to carry all burdens. You were meant to carry your effort, leading the rest to Allah. It does not mean life becomes smooth. Two people can face identical circumstances, loss, delay, uncertainty, and respond entirely differently. One crumbles, one walks steadily. The difference lies not in the storm, but in the weight within the heart. True ease is not the absence of difficulty, it is the presence of support. Even amidst responsibility, uncertainty, and unanswered questions, the heart can feel lighter. Panic softens, anxiety recedes. Why? Because reliance replaces sole responsibility. Caring while being carried transforms the experience. When all depends on you, every choice feels monumental, every mistake catastrophic, every delay threatening. When outcomes are entrusted to Allah, effort remains, but fear loosens its grip. You still work, try, prepare, and show up, but you do not clutch results with anxiety. Circumstances remain uncertain, but your heart finds steadiness. True calm comes not from control over events, but trust in the one who controls all. Even when the storm seems endless, even when uncertainty fills every corner of your mind, there is a place inside that remains untouched. That place is where trust resides. Overthinking floods the mind, but it cannot reach the sanctuary of reliance. When you turn to Allah sincerely, something profound begins. You are not changing the situation. You are not eliminating challenges. You are changing the way your heart carries them. Pause for a moment and reflect. How often do you rush through your thoughts, pushing yourself to fix things before they even unfold? How often do you try to solve every detail, anticipate every response, calculate every outcome? And yet, despite all that effort, how often does certainty truly arrive? Overthinking convinces you that security comes from knowledge and control. But the reality is different. Security comes from surrender. It comes from acknowledging the limits of human power and embracing divine wisdom. Consider this. What if your first instinct in difficulty was to pause and say, Ya Allah, I trust you with what I cannot see? Not as a formality, not as a ritual, but with honesty, with the trembling sincerity of a heart seeking refuge. That pause interrupts the cycle of overthinking. It stops fear from multiplying. It softens the racing mind because trust is not passive. Trust is an active realignment of the heart. It is an inner turning, a conscious decision to stop relying on your limited understanding and begin depending on the one who holds all knowledge. The mind will still wander. It will still speculate, worry, and calculate. That is normal. But when your heart has a reference point of trust, those thoughts no longer dominate. They're like clouds passing over the sky. They come, they linger, they fade. They do not control the weather of your heart. You can acknowledge them without surrendering your peace to them. That is the essence of reliance. Often we avoid our real emotions. Overthinking becomes a shield against vulnerability. It is easier to imagine what could go wrong than to sit with the fear, the sadness, the disappointment. It is easier to plan endlessly than to admit, I am hurt, I am afraid. I feel small, but avoidance does not heal. It only amplifies the internal tension, unprocessed. The said feelings do not vanish. They accumulate, nesting beneath mental noise, growing louder until we cannot ignore them. Healing begins with acknowledgement. Bring your heart to Allah in these moments. Speak openly, Ya Allah, I am overwhelmed. Ya Allah, I am uncertain. Ya Allah, I am afraid. You do not need perfect words. You do not need eloquence. You need sincerity. There is a profound lightness that comes when you release pretense. When you stop pretending to be invincible, when you stop performing strength, when you stop trying to prove yourself through control, your heart begins to soften. That softening allows trust to enter. That softening allows reliance to grow. Notice how overthinking masquerades as preparation. You tell yourself, if I think one more time, if I plan one more step, if I anticipate one more problem, I will finally feel safe. But reflect honestly, has that ever worked? Has imagining 10 possible outcomes ever prevented what was meant to happen? Has replaying every conversation changed what has already been said? Overthinking moves the mind, but it rarely touches the heart. It creates the illusion of control while strengthening fear. True preparation is calm. True preparation knows its limits. Overthinking knows no bounds. It loops endlessly, feeding on uncertainty, creating more doubt. When you understand this, you realize that the effort you invest in overthinking could be redirected towards sincere action. You do what you can with integrity and effort, and then leave the rest where it belongs with Allah. That is the balance. That is the wisdom. There is a subtle difference between carrying a burden alone and carrying it while being supported. Carrying it alone feels heavy. Every thought, every decision, every fear presses down, creating tension in the chest, fatigue in the body, and restlessness in the mind. But when you place your trust in Allah, you carry your effort, and He carries the weight of the outcome. The responsibilities remain, the challenges continue, but the suffocation fades. Your heart feels steadier. You are not abandoning responsibility. You are realigning it with divine wisdom. Ease is not the absence of difficulty. Do not mistake it for smooth circumstances. Two people may face identical trials, loss, delay, uncertainty, but experience them differently. One feels crushed. One moves steadily with composure. The difference is internal. It lies in the weight you carry and the foundation upon which you stand. If you stand on your own fluctuating strength, fear dominates. If you stand on the unshakable support of Allah, the same circumstances become manageable, even transformative. Take a breath and notice the moments you have already survived. Notice how many times you feared what would happen, only to discover that the outcome was different than your anxious imaginings. How often has overthinking led you to exhaustion without solution? And yet, through every trial, you have remained. You have continued. You have persevered. That is proof of resilience, not of control, but of reliance. Reliance does not mean passivity. It does not mean surrendering effort. It does not mean giving up responsibility. You still take action. You still show up. You still give your best. But the difference is internal. You release the obsession over results. You accept that outcomes are not yours to hold. You act, you strive, you do your part, and then you trust. That is the heart of surrender. That is the antidote to overthinking. Reflect on your patterns. When news feels cold, when plans falter, when uncertainty arrives, what is your first instinct? Panic, calculation, fear, or turning to Allah? The sequence matters. When you turn to Allah first, fear has less space to grow. When you whisper honestly, "Yeah, Allah, I need you," the heart finds anchor. The storm still exists, but your chest does not tighten in panic. The mind still encounters questions, but it no longer spirals endlessly. The shift is subtle, but transformative. Sometimes we overthink because of our perception of Allah. We believe in Him, but unconsciously we imagine Him as distant, waiting, measuring, observing. That perception breeds anxiety. It convinces the heart that you are alone in the test, that you must manufacture safety, protect yourself, prove worthiness. But Allah is not distant. He is not unaware of your thoughts, your fears, your silent struggles. He knows, He sees, He understands. The recognition that He is near transforms how you pray, how you surrender, how you live. Bring the truth to your heart. Allah is closer than your own jugular vein. He knows the racing thoughts, the silent questions, the worries you cannot speak aloud. You are not reporting to a distant observer. You are returning to a source of safety. You are not proving worthiness. You are seeking refuge. And that changes everything. Overthinking is often avoidance in disguise. It is easier to stay in the mind than to face the heart. Easier to analyze than to admit fear. Easier to calculate than to admit pain. Easier to rehearse outcomes than to sit with disappointment. But avoidance never heals, it only prolongs tension. The solution is not to stop feeling, it is to bring what you feel to Allah. Honest vulnerability does not collapse the heart, it softens it, it strengthens it, it frees it. Ya Allah, I am disappointed. Ya Allah, I am afraid. There is no need for perfection, no need for composed language. Sincerity alone reaches Him. And the more your heart sees Allah as near, the easier it becomes to release control. You are not leaving your life in emptiness. You are placing it in the sea, are of one who knows, who guides, who sustains. Overthinking is heavy because it attempts to grasp what was never yours to hold. Surrender is light because it places effort in your hands and outcome in Allah's. You still act, you still plan, you still try, but you no longer clutch results with panic. That is the shift from reaction to reliance. That is the path from exhaustion to steadiness. The storms may still blow, the uncertainty may persist, yet your chest is lighter, your mind is calmer, your heart bends rather than breaks. The effort is yours, the result is His. That alignment creates ease, not absence of challenges, but presence of support. Even now, as you reflect on everything, notice how many moments have been spent trapped inside the mind. Endless thoughts, repeated scenarios, imagined outcomes. Overthinking promises protection, yet delivers fatigue. It convinces you that if you calculate enough, plan enough, anticipate enough, you can control everything. But the reality is clear. Certainty does not come from the mind. It comes from surrender. It comes from placing your effort in your hands and your outcomes in Allah's. Think about the moments when panic rises, when a message feels cold, when plans fail, when uncertainty enters without warning. The first instinct is often to spin, to calculate, to analyze, to worry. Overthinking starts quietly, and before long, it feels unstoppable. It convinces you that the weight belongs to you, that every outcome, every success, every safety, every decision depends solely on your effort. And yet deep down, you know this is impossible. You know that life cannot be fully controlled. You know that certainty cannot be manufactured by human hands. That is why reliance is the cure. Reliance is not passivity. It is not inaction. It is not giving up. Reliance is conscious alignment with the one who holds all things. It is effort without clutching the outcome. It is preparation without panic. It is planning without fear. When you make your effort sincere and then release the result to Allah, you experience a subtle shift. Your shoulders lighten, your chest eases, your mind slows. You remain responsible for your actions, but you release the illusion of responsibility for everything else. Overthinking is a habit of the heart as much as it is of the mind. It thrives when the heart feels unsafe, when the heart believes it must manufacture protection. Overthinking whispers, if I just think enough, nothing will catch me off guard. If I just anticipate every possibility, I will be safe. And yet consider this. How many times has overthinking changed what was already destined? How many calculations prevented a reality that was beyond your hands? How many imagined conversations altered the words already spoken? The answer is nothing. Overthinking moves thought, but it rarely moves the heart. Pause and breathe slowly. Let this truth settle. Effort belongs to you. Outcome belongs to Allah. You are not alone. You were never meant to carry everything alone. The weight that was never yours to bear can be placed gently in the hands of the one who sustains all. Surrender is not weakness. It is alignment. It is honesty. It is a quiet, steadfast acknowledgement that your life, your circumstances, your future rest in the care of a perfect, unshakable source. Notice how often overthinking is used to avoid feelings. It is easier to calculate than to admit fear. It is easier to plan than to admit hurt. It is easier to imagine scenarios than to confront disappointment. But unprocessed feelings linger. They grow beneath mental noise. They amplify tension. They sit quietly, waiting for acknowledgement. Healing begins not in the mind, but in the heart. Healing begins when you say honestly, Ya Allah, I am afraid. Ya Allah, I am hurt. Ya Allah, I do not understand. You do not need eloquence. You do not need formality. You need sincerity. The more you bring your heart to Allah, the more your reliance grows. The more your reliance grows, the less space overthinking occupies. The storm may remain, the uncertainty may persist, but the pressure eases, the mind slows, the chest softens, the heart bends without breaking. That is the transformation of surrender. That is the quiet power of reliance. That is the freedom from the illusion that everything depends on you. Consider the nature of effort and outcome. Effort is yours. It is active. It is real. It is tangible. Outcome. It is not yours. It is unseen, uncertain, unknowable. Clinging to both creates panic, releasing the outcome, while embracing sincere effort creates clarity. You send the message, you attend the meeting, you study for the test, you repair the relationship, you make your choice, and then quietly, internally, you say, Ya Allah, I have done my part. I trust you with what I cannot control. That internal surrender is where calm begins. That internal surrender is where reliance is born. Overthinking is heavy because it tries to claim what was never yours, the control over everything. Trust is light because it places effort where it belongs and outcome where it belongs. You act, you strive, you prepare, but you do not clutch results with anxiety. You release them into divine care. That shift from reaction to reliance is profound. It may feel subtle at first, almost imperceptible, but repeated practice grows stronger. Your shoulders soften, your chest eases, your mind slows, your heart learns to bend without breaking. The real challenge is often perception. Deep down, some of us still imagine Allah as distant, observing, waiting, measuring. That perception creates anxiety. It makes overthinking feel necessary. It convinces the heart that everything must be controlled. But the truth is that Allah is closer than your jugular vein. He sees your thoughts, your fears, your silent struggles. He knows, He understands, and He is near. Recognition of His closeness transforms your heart. It changes the way you pray. It changes the way you surrender. It changes the way you live. Turn honestly to Him. Ya Allah, I am exhausted. Ya Allah, I am afraid. Ya Allah, I do not understand. There is no need for eloquence. There is no need for composure. Sincerity is enough. Over time, that sincerity softens the heart. It replaces fear with reliance. It replaces panic with trust. It replaces awe, calling, or thinking with clarity. It does not remove challenges, but it transforms the way you meet them. The storm may still blow, The uncertainty may still knock, but the chest no longer tightens, the mind no longer spins, the heart no longer suffocates. Ease is not the absence of difficulty, it is the presence of support. Carrying your effort while leaving outcomes to Allah creates that support. You still show up, you still act, you still try, but you do not clutch results with fear. That is the essence of surrender. That is the heart of reliance. That is the spiritual shift that frees the mind and softens the chest. Reflect on the times you survived fear, disappointment, uncertainty, and loss. Notice how overthinking promised protection but delivered exhaustion. Notice how trust, even in small moments, has brought peace. That is the pattern. That is the truth. Effort in your hands, outcome in Allah's hands. Panic replaced with calm. Overthinking replaced with reliance. Anxiety replaced with trust. Pressure replaced with steadiness. Take a slow breath. Let the reality of this truth settle in your heart. Overthinking is heavy. Reliance is light. Panic is temporary. Trust is enduring. Effort is yours. Outcome belongs to Allah. That is the alignment of the heart. That is the path to peace. That is the release you were searching for. In moments of fear, in moments of doubt, in moments of uncertainty, whisper quietly, Ya Allah, I have done my part. I leave the rest to you, not as empty words, not as a ritual, but as an honest surrender. That small internal act changes everything. It does not prevent the storm. It does not remove uncertainty, but it steadies your chest. It slows your mind. It softens your heart. It transforms the experience of life. Overthinking says everything depends on you. Reliance says you are carried. Overthinking says fear first, prayer later. Reliant, Knox says prayer first, fear later. Overthinking says uncertainty is heavy. Reliance says you are supported. Overthinking says panic is necessary. Reliance says peace is possible. The storm remains. The uncertainty persists, but the heart bends without breaking. That is the gift of surrender. That is the gift of trust. That is the gift of reliance. Bring your heart to Allah. Speak honestly. Effort in your hands. Outcome in His hands. Panic replaced with calm. Anxiety replaced with trust. Overthinking replaced with reliance. The storm may come. The uncertainty may remain. But the heart anchored in divine care does not collapse. It bends. It softens, it releases. That is the quiet power of trust. That is the steady light of reliance. That is the path through the chaos of the mind to the calm of the heart. Take a final breath. Let it fill your chest with awareness of effort and release. Let it remind you that overthinking is heavy, but reliance is light, that panic is temporary, but trust endures, that fear is natural, but surrender transforms it. That you are not alone, that you were never meant to carry everything alone, and that the heart that aligns with Allah finds a steadiness that overthinking can never give.